Americans treat motorcycles like jewelry. You drop 20 grand on a Ducati or Harley and then start to panic if it rains. But while you finance your ego, the rest of the world rides a $2,000 miracle. It conquered Africa. It survives roads that snap a BMW in half. Brands like Bajaj and Royal Enfield humiliated the giants. Americans are sleeping on the greatest revolution in engineering. Your $20,000 adventure bike is a lie. Now, are you ready to hear the truth? The African Proving Ground. To understand why this machine is a masterpiece, you have to understand the arena it was born in. Forget the Autobahn. Forget the Pacific Coast Highway. Forget your smooth suburban cul-de-sacs. Welcome to the roads of rural Nigeria. Welcome to the mud tracks of Uganda. Welcome to the savannas of Kenya. Here, a motorcycle is not a hobby. It is a lifeline. It is a taxi. It is a truck. It is an ambulance. These are motorcycle taxis that run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They do not carry a single rider in a high-vis jacket. They carry 3, 4, sometimes 5 passengers at once. They carry live goats. They carry stacks of lumber. They carry refrigerators strapped to the pillion seat with nothing but rubber strips cut from old inner tubes. The terrain is brutal. We are talking about deep sand that eats clutches. Red clay, mud that turns into industrial glue when it rains. Potholes deep enough to swallow a wheel whole. In the 90s, the Japanese ruled this market. The Honda CG125 and the Yamaha YB100 were kings. They were reliable, but they were expensive. A Honda cost too much for a local rider trying to feed his family. Then came the Chinese invasion in the early 2000s. They flooded the market with clones. They were dirt cheap, costing maybe $600. But they were made of cheese. Frames snapped in half under heavy loads. Engines exploded after 6 months. Vibration cracked the fuel tanks. It was a use and throw economy. The riders were suffering. They faced a terrible dilemma. Go bankrupt buying a Japanese bike or go bankrupt fixing a Chinese bike. But just when the market seemed broken, a new player entered the game. They didn't come from the West and they didn't come from the East. They came from the middle, and they brought a philosophy that would change everything. The Indian invasion. Around the mid-2000s, Indian manufacturers, specifically Bajaj and TVS, looked at Africa and saw an opportunity. They had spent decades in India building bikes for their own crumbling infrastructure. They knew how to build tough. They knew how to build cheap. But unlike the Chinese, they knew how to build quality. They introduced 2 motorcycles that would become legends, the Bajaj Boxer and the TVS HLX. These bikes cost about $1,500 to $2,000 brand new, and they changed everything. If there is a motorcycle hall of fame, the Bajaj Boxer 150 belongs right next to the Honda Cub. It is ugly. It looks like it was designed in 1980 by a Soviet architect. It has a round headlight, a long flat seat, and a simple metal tank. But underneath that humble exterior, it is indestructible. It is the AK-47 of motorcycles. You can drop it in a river, drag it out, kick it twice, and it will start. Then there is the TVS HLX. This is the challenger. It added features that the riders desperately needed. It added a USB charger on the tank because the rider needs to keep his phone charged to find customers. It added a gear indicator. It refined the durability. These Indian brands didn't just sell bikes, they sold an ecosystem. They sent mechanics to villages to train locals. They ensured spare parts were available in every corner store. Within 10 years, they wiped out the competition. Today, if you go to Lagos or Nairobi, you won't see many Hondas. You won't see many Chinese clones. You will see a sea of Bajaj and TVS. They won by being the perfect balance of durability and price. But the real secret wasn't just the price, it was the engineering. American engineers designed for performance. Indian engineers designed for something much harder to achieve, the engineering of survival. Why are these bikes better than a $20,000 adventure bike? It comes down to a concept called appropriate technology. Western engineering is obsessed with numbers. We want 200 horsepower. We want radar cruise control. We want electronic suspension that adjusts 1,000 times a second. That is impressive engineering, but it is fragile engineering. If your BMW GS throws an electronic code in the middle of the Sahara, you are dead. You cannot fix a CAN bus wiring system with a rock. You cannot diagnose a sensor failure without a laptop. The Indian engineering philosophy is different. It is obsessed with survival. Let's look at the engine. These engines are under-stressed. A Bajaj 150 cc engine makes maybe 12 horsepower. It is barely trying. Because it isn't stressed, it lasts forever. They use oil filters that are easy to clean or replace with a generic mesh. They use carburetors or very simple fuel injection that can be tuned with a screwdriver. They run on bad gas that is half water and half kerosene, and they don't complain. They don't have high compression pistons that detonate if you give them anything less than premium fuel. Then look at the suspension. Bajaj introduced something called SNS, or spring-in-spring technology. Look at the rear shocks of a Boxer. It has 2 springs on each shock, a smaller inner spring and a larger outer spring. Why? Because Bajaj knew these bikes would be carrying 400 pounds of cargo. One spring handles the rider. The second spring handles the refrigerator strapped to the back. It is simple, mechanical, and brilliant. The frame is made of heavy steel. It isn't lightweight aluminum. Why? Because if you crash the steel, it bends. You can take a hammer, bang it back into shape, and keep riding. If you crash an aluminum frame on a rocky trail, it cracks. Game over. And finally, the economy. This is the kicker. These bikes get 120 to 150 miles per gallon. In America, we brag about getting 40. For an African taxi rider, fuel is their biggest expense. A Bajaj Boxer allows them to work all day on $3 of gas. That is the difference between feeding their family or starving. So if these bikes are so good, why aren't they in America? Why are we paying 10 times the price for bikes that are less reliable? The answer is uncomfortable. Why Americans are sleeping. There are 3 reasons why you don't have a Bajaj in your garage, and the manufacturers are working very hard to make sure it stays that way. The first reason is the highway trap. America is a land of interstates. We have a distinct need for speed. These Indian utility bikes top out at 60 or 65 miles per hour. On an American interstate, that is a death sentence. However, this is a weak excuse. Most Americans live in cities. We commute on surface streets. We ride on back roads. We don't need to do 80 miles per hour to get to Starbucks. We want to. We buy vehicles for the 1% of the time we might go on a road trip, rather than the 99% of the time we are stuck in traffic. The second reason is the ego. This is the real reason. In America, bigger is always better. We have been brainwashed by marketing to believe that anything under 600 cubic centimeters is a beginner bike or a girl's bike. We measure our worth in cc's. A guy on a 1250cc bike looks down on a guy on a 300cc bike, even if the guy on the small bike is having more fun. The industry loves this. The margin on a big bike is massive. The margin on a $2,000 commuter is tiny. They don't want you to know that a 350cc bike is all you actually need. They want to sell you the dream of the Dakar Rally, even if you only ride to the grocery store. The third reason is regulation. The EPA. Western emission standards are strict. Air-cooled, carbureted engines struggle to pass modern Euro 5 and US standards. But this excuse is vanishing. The Indian manufacturers are adapting. They are moving to simple EFI and liquid cooling while keeping the price down. But wait, would you ride a 12-horsepower bike if it meant you could ride around the world for pennies? Tell us in the comments. Well, while the Americans were sleeping, one brand decided to wake them up. A brand that was viewed as a joke for decades has suddenly become the most dangerous player in the game. The Trojan horse, Royal Enfield. While Bajaj and TVS conquered the developing world, another Indian giant decided to attack the West directly, Royal Enfield. Royal Enfield is the oldest motorcycle brand in continuous production. They used to be British, now they are Indian. For years they made the Bullet. It was a vintage relic. It vibrated parts off. It leaked oil on your driveway. It was charming, but it was objectively bad. Then around 2016, they changed the game. They launched the Himalayan. The Himalayan was the first shot across the bow. It was a 411 cubic centimeter adventure bike. It cost $5,000 brand new in the US. The media laughed. They said it was slow, making only 24 horsepower. They said it was heavy. They compared it to a KTM and mocked it. But then people started riding them. They realized they could drop it, pick it up, and keep going. They realized it could go anywhere a BMW GS could go, just a little slower. It became a cult hit. It proved that Americans were hungry for simple, affordable durability. Then came the Hunter 350 and the Meteor 350. These bikes cost $4,000. They are dominating the sales charts in the UK and making massive waves in the US. They are proving that the $2,000 motorcycle philosophy scales up. Royal Enfield proved that you don't need high tech. You need high character and high reliability. But Royal Enfield is just the tip of the spear. The real giants are hiding in plain sight. You might even own one of their bikes without knowing it. The hidden giants. Here is the secret. The industry doesn't want you to know. The era of Western dominance is ending. The Western brands have realized they cannot compete on price, so they are partnering with the Indian giants to build their entry-level bikes. Look at Triumph. They just launched the Speed 400. It is a beautiful machine. Where is it made? India. Who makes it? Bajaj. Look at Harley-Davidson. Their new X440. Where is it made? India. Who makes it? Hero MotoCorp. Look at BMW, their G310 series. Made in India. Who makes it? TVS. Look at KTM. Bajaj owns nearly half of KTM. The Duke 390? That is a Bajaj bike with Austrian stickers. The Western badge you are paying a premium for is often just a sticker on an Indian motorcycle. The $2,000 bike is evolving. It is getting ABS. It is getting cleaner engines, but it is keeping its soul. Hero MotoCorp is the world's largest manufacturer of two-wheelers. They make millions of bikes a year. They are preparing to enter the European and American markets under their own name. When they do, they will undercut everyone. But before you run out and buy that expensive European bike, let's do some math. Let's look at what owning a motorcycle actually costs. The cost of ownership. Let's break down the math. Let's look at the real cost of a motorcycle over 5 years. This is the financial reality check that dealers hate. The American way, the premium adventure bike. You buy a premium European adventure bike. The purchase price is $22,000. Then you pay dealer fees and setup, adding another $1,500. You need full coverage insurance because you financed it. Over 5 years, that is $4,000. These high horsepower bikes eat tires. You will spend $1,500 on rubber. The major service involves valve adjustments that require stripping the bike naked. That is $3,000 in labor. And finally, depreciation. It loses 40% of its value the moment it leaves the lot. If you are tired of overpriced, overcomplicated motorcycles, click that like button. Let the manufacturers know we want simple back. Total 5-year cost, over $30,000. The global way, the Indian utility bike / Royal Enfield. You buy a Royal Enfield Himalayan or a future Bajaj import. The purchase price is $4,500. Dealer fees are minimal, maybe $500. Insurance is cheap because the bike is cheap. $1,000 for 5 years. Tires last forever because the engine doesn't shred them. $400. Major service? You do it yourself with a wrench in the driveway. $200 for oil and filters. Depreciation is low because the demand for cheap, reliable transport is always high. It loses maybe 20%. Total 5-year cost, $6,500. You could buy 5 Royal Enfields for the price of owning 1 Ducati Multistrada. You could buy a brand new bike every single year and throw the old one in the river. Don't actually do that and still save money. The math is undeniable. The reliability is undeniable. The only thing stopping you is your own perception. Do you like this video? Click that like button, and if you want to support us even more, become a member. Have early access to the newest videos. See, the €2,000 motorcycle isn't cheap in the sense of quality. It is optimized for the hardest roads on Earth. It has conquered the mud of the Congo. It has conquered the heat of Rajasthan. It has conquered the altitude of the Himalayas. Do you really think it can't handle your commute to the office? It is time to stop sleeping on these machines. It is time to stop judging a bike by its horsepower figure and start judging it by its survival instinct. It is time to stop letting marketing departments tell us what we need and look at what the world actually uses. The next time you see a Bajaj, a TVS, or a Royal Enfield, don't look down on it, respect it. Because while your bike is in the shop waiting for a software update, that $2,000 machine is crossing a continent. Click the next video to continue the road trip. Join our tribe by subscribing, and if you want to support our channel and have early access on the newest videos, become a member. And just a moment, please don't forget to like this video.